From the AP, FBI searches home and office of ex-Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. The FBI on Friday searched the Maryland home and Washington office of former Trump administration National Security Advisor John Bolton as part of a criminal investigation into the potential mishandling of classified information, a person familiar with the matter said. Bolton, who emerged as an outspoken critic of Donald Trump after being fired in 2019 and fought with the first Trump administration over a scathing book he wrote documenting his time in the White House, was not in custody Friday and has not been charged with any crimes, said the person who is not authorized to discuss the investigation by name and spoke to the Associated Press on the condition of anonymity. The search is seemingly the most significant public step in the Justice Department has taken against a perceived enemy of the president, are likely to elicit fresh concerns that the Trump administration is using its law enforcement powers to target the Republican votes. I can barely even say that without chuckling, considering how they targeted Donald Trump when he was out of office. They go on to say they come as the Trump administration has moved to examine the activities of other critics, including by authorizing a grand jury investigation into the origins of the Trump-Russia probe that dogged Trump for much of his first term, and as FBI and Justice Department leaders signal their loyalty to the president. So this is, I mean, it's nice to see, right? If he's actually violated the law, which they're, doing an investigation that's perfectly on the up and up. It's nice to see that the Trump administration, the DOJ, is actually applying pressure to people that, have been not just critical, but, they've had questionable dealings with the administration previously. Do you guys think that this is actually going to materialize in anything, considering that Bolton himself is not under arrest, or I'm not even sure if there's anything more than just searching his house now?
You want to take it away?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'd say, John Bolton's never met an invasion he didn't like until this morning when the FBI showed up at his home, right? And really what's happening here is they're picking up, this Trump administration is picking up on a former Trump administration Department of Justice investigation into Bolton's potential leakage, handling of classified information in his book. And I just have to say the irony is really thick, because when Trump was getting, raided and prosecuted for his handling of classified information, which he's the president and he can do, John Bolton said, well, Trump is very careless with this information. So I guess we're about to find out who's really careless now.
Yeah, if I understand correctly, this is pertaining to, like William said, his book.
Right.
That was questionable in the first place when the book was released, right, Abby?
Right. I mean, there were some concerns early on. This is something Jack Posobiec and I were talking about today. There were concerns early on in 2020 that when he released his book, perhaps he had used classified information to construct that book, which is called The Room Where It Happens, which I think it's funny because he basically ripped that off from Hamilton, because that's Aaron Burr's song in the show. I love the show, but whatever. So there was concerns about that it had been leaked and while it was still in pre-publication, leaked to the New York Times. And there were also concerns that he was every night apparently taking notes from his classified documents at the office and taking those notes home. So I think that it's certainly interesting to see what will happen with this. There's also arguments to be made that maybe there are too many classified documents. This is something that we've heard Tucker Carlson say over the years. Maybe there's too many classified documents. But also, I was watching MSNBC today looking for something, and this woman was talking about how, it's rich for Trump to be talking about classified documents since he had absconded with them. And she didn't mention at all that, of course, there's the Presidential Records Act, and the president can take classified documents, and every president has taken classified documents. I mean, there's even the Bill Clinton socks case about how, the president can keep classified documents in his sock drawer if he so chooses. But yeah, I think that I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And also, this is not a new case. So to say that this is an intentional political prosecution now, this was a case that the Trump DOJ brought in 2020 and the Biden DOJ dropped it.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like bringing it back.
When Bolton's book was coming out, they made a pass at blocking it, right? And it didn't go through. The judge didn't grant them that. But Bolton's book, not only was it incredibly negative towards the president. Again, Bolton thinks something like diplomacy is a dirty word. Right? He'd rather drop bombs instead of have talks. But this does raise the question of classified information. Classified information is this sort of currency in Washington, D.C., right? Everybody loves to get and leak classified information, and everybody does it. I mean, both sides do it. Republicans do it. Democrats do it. And how it's going to be weaponized is a question here. But Bolton is, again, coming face to face with the fact that no matter how much he wants to be, he is not and will never be the president. And Donald Trump has been and is.
Right.
You know, you guys mentioned the overclassification. I think that that's kind of typical of DC, if I understand correctly. And it's because they don't want people to ask questions, or they at least don't want to have to answer questions. So the more the bureaucracy can actually get classified, the better they like it, because they can just, brush off questions they don't have to answer. And then if there's ever a time where their feet are held to the fire, they can just say, well, look, it's classified. I can't talk about it. And it's not my fault. I'm not trying to hide anything. It's just that this is classified information.
They also pulled Bolton's security clearance, and they did that in January, and so this government, this administration is tightening things up. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because how sick are you of opening some story from the AP or wherever else that says unnamed, unauthorized sources, familiar with the matter, who are unauthorized to speak on it. And so they're speaking with anonymity. Like, this is something that, when you're reporting on things, you keep looking at this and you're like, why do I believe you and your weird fake sources? Who are these people?
Does this turn classified information, or does the amount of classified information and how readily it's leaked by someone that just doesn't have to say their name, does that turn classified information into a currency? Does it make it something that people can look at and say, well, I can get favor with this particular media outlet or what have you?
Yeah, not just a currency, but also a weapon. Like Libby was just saying, is that, they can use, Trump has been now in almost a decade-long battle against the deep state, who have primarily used intelligence agencies, so-called classified information, falsified classified reports, the whole Russiagate hoax, to attack him and undercut him. And so, look, I trust that Bondi and Kash Patel are doing the right thing here. They wouldn't just be doing this to try to get back at John Bolton. Of all the bad actors out there, he's a bad one, but there's worse ones. So I would assume they have a legitimate reason to pick up on this investigation. But that said, it is nice to see the Trump administration going after the really bad actors from the first admin.
To your point, like, as far as John Bolton as a bad actor, it's really more people saying they have a policy difference, different approach than John Bolton, who, yes, you made it clear that he's a hawkish kind of guy, and he thinks that flexing American military might is the best type of foreign policy. But that's different to someone like, say, Schiff, who was literally lying about Donald Trump, lying about what information was out there regarding the Russia probe. Lying to not just to make people think that Trump was guilty of something that he hadn't done, but to actually try to get some kind of legal ramifications on the president.
Along that vein, you'd think that maybe that classified information, if it's accidentally taken home, would be treated much less of a crime than if someone's maliciously utilizing it to or using fake, classifying something that's not real, or saying they got,
Do you think that the stuff that we've heard has been accidentally taken home generally? We've got.
I don't know with the Biden in his
I don't
garage.
think Bolton does anything accidentally.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it has been people want to write their books, right? Like, Obama took stuff home to write his book. Biden took stuff home to write his book. This guy, Bolton, took stuff home, probably to write his book.
Well,
and I think that's a lot of what it is.
When stuff gets
this is how politicians get rich off their time in office. They get
selling secrets,
$1 million book deals.
Yeah.
If it's slipped in a box when they're carrying their stuff out and it lands in their garage, that is much less of a crime than someone that's using it.
With Biden, it was boxes and boxes of documents. It wasn't like just one classified document and then everything else was fine.
What was it with Trump at Mar-a-Lago?
It was stuff that he took home. But he was the president. He has the right to declassify things, and presidents take stuff home.
Yeah, I think
that's like what presidents do. And then what happened was the FBI, when they were framing up their case, they literally framed up their case. They put in cover sheets. They took all of this stuff and organized it in specific ways for their own purposes and took photographs of it. They were essentially tampering with evidence to try and sway the public toward the idea that Trump had absconded illegally with classified documents.
Like they unsecured the evidence and then took pictures of it in an unsecured state.
Yeah.
And claimed that he
Well, they staged it to make it look worse than
staged
it
it.
was. So
Yeah.
I think 2 points on the Bolton thing, Phil. I think what's going on here with Bolton is not just policy differences. It's that Bolton used this information, I think, in a particularly malicious way to malign and undercut Donald Trump in his memoir. And in that sense, it's not just a policy difference, but it really is this ongoing and hopefully nearing an end struggle between the last gasp of the neocons who view Donald Trump, rightly so, as a repudiation of multi-decades of their failed foreign policy. It's not just a policy disagreement. They want to try to put a stake in the heart of MAGA if they can. And then the second thing I would say, too, is that, look, I appreciate that in many ways we're going tit for tat because we're either going to have equal justice under the law, or we're going to have a two-tier justice system where only Republicans or only Donald Trump, or only Trump's associates get prosecuted and persecuted for these things. So it's good to see it going the other way.
So to your point about trying to put a stake in the heart of MAGA or what have you, or a fight between MAGA and neocons, I think that it's fairly obvious that the neocons are just going over to the Democrat Party, whether it be John Bolton or Bill Kristol or any of the guys at the Lincoln Project. They're all Democrats now, and even if they haven't officially changed their parties, they're not just people like Joe Walsh. They're not just saying I'm a Republican or a conservative and Donald Trump isn't a conservative. They're actually promoting policies that the Democrats promote, right? And whether that have nothing to do with Donald Trump, right? Or that have nothing to do with conservatism. I saw Joe Walsh was posting about very pro immigration kind of things, like he's wrong to deport people. And when you're doing that kind of stuff as a Republican or as a former Republican, you're definitely not a Republican. And it's not even a rhino situation. It's you're actually aligning with the Democrats because you don't like Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, David French voted for Kamala Harris to save conservatism from itself, whatever that means.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
All of them are
that
just
doesn't make any sense
going
at all.
down this path.
Yeah. And so I think that it's more about trying to stay in the good graces of the bureaucracy in Washington than it is about having any kind of principled ideas that are conservatively, based in conservatism.
Well, there's a huge sort of disagreement about what conservatism is at this point, right? Because you have what's conservatism? It's the idea of conserving things. And you have a situation now where most conservatives are really opposed to the conservation of American institutions that have been so poisoned by leftism that they're basically useless. And so the establishment conservatives are like, how could you say that there's something wrong with the Smithsonian? It's like, it says whiteness is the root of all evil. So kind of there's something wrong with it because it's racist.
Open your eyes to see.
Yes, exactly. But so I think that is a big split. And so the conservatives who are like, Harvard is still amazing and it's still a bastion of American educational supremacy, which it kind of just isn't anymore. Those conservatives are going to align themselves with Kamala Harris. Those conservatives are going to align themselves with Forever Wars, which is how, all of these places stay funded anyway. And then the conservatives who want to actually preserve American supremacy and American exceptionalism and want to make sure that the United States is a prosperous home for our children's future, that's sort of a different kind of conservatism now than the history of what we've had for the past 50 years.
You want to conserve American republicanism, democratic republicanism, in that you want to preserve the ability of the people to pick their candidate. And Kamala Harris was thrust upon us by the industrial order. You would say the Democratic Party is not conservative at all, which is like LOL, of course. But if they call themselves neo-conservative, it's just a fake word they're using to mask their behavior if they're supporting a person that was put into power. Like the superdelegate system in the Democratic Party is an aberration of our system. We're supposed to select our candidates. It is very weird.
Yeah.
It is very antithetical to the system right now.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.